Well, I woke up this morning from a reoccurring dream.
What is Jainism? And it's by Cogito, or Cogito. I always forget how to say his name. You guys, thanks so much for joining us. I'm Jaby KOAY. This is DEMITRA Seeley. And so we're going to look at what is Jainism by Cogito. If you want to support his channel, he's got merch you can buy, and also subscribe. There's a link in the description below. You can click on that, give the original upvote, and subscribe to him from there. Here we go.
Today's video is sponsored by NordVPN. More on that later. Jainism. Some call it the world's most peaceful religion. Its monks are famous worldwide for their strict adherence to non-violence, going as far as to sweep the floor as they walk in order to avoid stepping on life forms, covering their mouths as to not swallow or breathe hot air on living creatures, and following a strict vegetarian diet that not only bans all meat, fish and eggs, but also potatoes. So what is Jainism? Why is it considered the world's most peaceful religion? And why is this monk butt naked? Well, let's find out. So this is the official symbol of Jainism. Yes, that is a swastika. We'll get to that eventually. Adopted in the 1970s, it represents the main beliefs of Jainism. I'm not going to explain what it means right now, rather we'll fill this symbol in as we go along. A Jain is someone who accepts the teachings of the Tirthankaras. Jainism comes from the word Jina. The Sanskrit word Jina means spiritual victor, while Tirthankara means maker of a ford. Now, a different kind of ford entirely. Thank you. Tirthankaras are the most important people in Jainism. They have removed all of their attachments to the world and during their lifetimes have managed to break free from the cycle of rebirth and death that Jains believe keeps souls trapped on earth. They then built a metaphorical ford across the river of rebirth so that others can follow them to liberation. In non-Jain histories, a guy called Mahavira...
He fell down, did you catch that?
He wasn't liberated.
No, this is him right there.
To liberation. In non-Jain...
That's funny. Could you give up all attachments? Give up your makeup?
I should think so. I mean, like, easier said than done, but I think I would be able to. Could you?
Hell no. I enjoy my stuff way too much. I enjoy my tech. I enjoy my phones and my YouTubes and...
I'm not really a stuff person, but I think I'd enjoy, like, I'd miss society and like being a part of and like going out to things and like eating and stuff like that. And I feel like they don't go to like restaurants and stuff. Like I'd miss all of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
More than I would material possessions.
All of it. I'd miss sushi.
Yeah.
I'd miss Indian food.
I travel so much and I go to different countries so often. Like most of my stuff fits in a suitcase.
Wow.
It was kind of forced onto me, I guess, when I started moving around a lot.
Yeah, not there yet, but maybe someday. I mean, maybe someday I'll let go and abandon my affinity for all these things, that my PS5 and everything, and be just nomadic, travel the world.
Travel the world.
Someday, maybe, or not. Just make babies.
Histories, a guy called Mahavira tends to get labelled as the founder of Jainism, in the same way that Jesus does in Christianity. For Jains though, Mahavira, who predated the Buddha by a few decades, is just one in a long line of 24 Tirthankaras. Well, technically there have actually been an infinite number of Tirthankaras, but we just don't have time for that. Jains believe that they all preach the same eternal truths anyway. Buddhism, Hinduism and Jainism all grew up together in ancient India. The world that these three religious buddies evolved in during the 6th and 5th centuries BCE was dominated by two ideas. The first of these is Samsara. When we die, our souls move to a new body and we are trapped in an endless cycle of death and rebirth, which is like super not fun. The second idea was karma, that actions, good or bad, affect your future rebirths. Right, so Jainism is quite complicated, and the best way for us to understand it is to break it down into its 8 core ideas. Number 1, the 3 jewels. The Tirthankaras preached that the path of freeing your soul was the 3 jewels. Those 3 jewels are right faith. Right faith is accepting the 7 truths or tattvas of Jainism. Ooh, a list inside of another list. How exciting. Number 1 is jiva, that all living things have an immortal, perfect soul. Number 2 is ajiva, non-living things have no soul. Number 3 is ajrava, doing actions drags karma to your soul. 4 is bandha, which is karma can stick to your soul. Number 5 is samvara, you can stop the influx of karma. Number 6 is nirhara, you can separate karma from your soul. And number 7 is moksha, separating karma from your soul, frees it from the cycle of rebirth and death.
If you want me to remember all of this, it's got to be in a video game where you're like, you're using these things to like free karma from your soul or deflect or whatever, or absorb it and push it back, you know, like manipulate it like WandaVision, you know? I can remember all that stuff if it's part of a video game.
I mean, it'd make a kind of an interesting video game. You're trying to free your soul from this cycle, and you have to do that.
Yeah, good to have
you should pitch it.
The second jewel is right knowledge. Right faith is believing those 7 truths. Right knowledge is truly understanding them. You can do this by listening to Jain monks and reading Jain scriptures. And the last jewel is right behaviour. Right behaviour is using your faith and your knowledge to live a life that is good and does not harm others. You can do this by following the 5 great vows of Jainism, the Mahabharatas. I know, another list inside of a list. Yeah, Jains like lists, like a lot. The Mahabharatas are, number 1, Ahimsa, non-violence. Number 2, Satya, always being truthful. Number 3, Asteya, not stealing. Number 4 is Brahmacharya, being faithful to your partner or being totally celibate. Number 5 is Aparigraha, not being weighed down by possessions or unnecessary attachments to people, places or things. These 3 jewels are seen as the only path to moksha, freeing your soul. They are so important that they were incorporated into the official Jain symbol as those 3 dots there. Ahimsa is by far the most important of these vows and is strictly followed by all Jains. So let's take a look at that. Number 2, Ahimsa. Some Jain temples have an inscription above their doors,
how beautiful.
Usually in Sanskrit but sometimes in English, that reads, "Non-violence is the highest religion." Jains believe that if you want to achieve moksha, you need to stop harming other life forms. Jains believe that every living thing has a soul and can therefore feel pain and suffering. Animal and even human rights are a fairly recent concept, but Jains have granted something similar to all life, even microbes, for thousands of years. Ahimsa is the hand in the middle of the Jain symbol, and the text there at the bottom reads, "All life is bound together by mutual support and interdependence." Number 3, Anekantavada. Life is complicated. In order to understand it a little better, Jains came up with a many-pointed doctrine known as Anekantavada. No single viewpoint can be the only truth. Instead, the full truth must be built out of a bunch of different viewpoints. There is a famous story in Jainism that helps get this point across. 5 blind men go up to an elephant and each touch one part and attempt to describe what the creature looks like. The guy at the trunk says, "This thing must be as thick as a tree trunk." While the guy at the tail says, "No, actually it's probably more like a rope." The guy at the belly claims it's a wall, clearly. The other guy at the leg disagrees, saying it's a pillar. And the last guy grabbing the ears thinks they're all fools because it's clearly a fan. The story then goes on to say that a nearby wise old man told them that they were all right, but only partially, and that all their points together could describe the whole elephant. That wise old man? Albert Einstein. After explaining the elephant to the blind men, the wise old man bestowed more knowledge upon them. He said to never miss a Cogito video. Make sure to click the
He had me, I was like, wait, what? This took a weird left turn.
Yeah.
Wait, Albert Einstein was part of Jainism? What the hell? Okay, I'm gonna go with this.
I was fooled. I was like, okay, yeah.
Ring the notification bell. And the blind men nodded, for they knew that this was great wisdom. Some modern Jains often see Anekantavada as a part of Ahimsa, as tolerance of other worldviews, especially when it comes to other religions. Number 4, Samsara and Moksha. Samsara, the endless cycle of death and rebirth. For Jains, rebirth is not a good thing. Even a good rebirth, as say a prince or a potato, is sad, because no matter how good your life is, all happiness is temporary because it all ends in death. Yeah, it's a bummer. And there's only one cure for this, moksha. If you achieve moksha, then your soul will escape the cycle and go on to live at the top of the universe in infinite bliss.
It's nice.
This can only be done by completely removing karma from your soul. Number 5, karma. The term karma means action, but this action has consequences. Jains believe that your karma affects how you will be reborn in your next life. But good or bad karma is irrelevant to Jains because it's the fact that karma keeps rebirth going that they see as the main problem. Jains have a rather unique view of karma. They see it as a physical substance. Jains believe that karma is kind of like atoms that cover the entire universe. When you do any action, it attracts these good or bad karma atoms to your soul. Then later in life, or possibly in another life, they release their good or bad effects. Once they've done that, they fall off your soul. Passions such as hate, anger, greed, or lust will act as a glue that makes even more atoms stick to you, and so will make the consequences even more powerful.
That's really nice.
Imagine your soul as a cloth.
Well, I mean, you're paying top dollar for these, what do you call it, generic
The
clips.
stock images.
The stock images and stuff like that. Hopefully you get some good stuff. Do you consider yourself spiritual?
Yeah, I'd say spiritual.
Okay, because like your reaction to this is like, oh, she's like really like feeling that.
I always like show everything.
Let me dump some of my own like garbage onto this real quick. So for me, like I don't know like what I believe spiritually. All I know is I try my best to lead a good, honest life, like honest in terms of like how I treat people well. I try to be generous with my time as much as I can afford and be respectful. I don't have any evidence to support there being an afterlife or a second life or rebirth, reincarnation or anything like that. I do agree though with a lot of the principles being endowed here. In theory, like don't hurt each other.
Yeah.
Basic. But I think that the reason I have a hard time with this notion of divorcing myself from possessions and whatnot is because it's intrinsically tied to this notion of freeing yourself from this world, which, okay, depending on who you are, that could be a good thing. Like maybe stuff just gives you anxiety, right? And it probably does.
It gives me a bit of anxiety, if I'm being honest.
Sure, yeah. So a lot of this comes from my Catholic upbringing. A lot of these actions, the virtuous way of living and whatever, is all tied to this notion of so you can get into heaven. But I'm like, what about right now and here? Like, because I feel like a lot of people, this is tied into a much bigger thing, which is I feel like a lot of people don't live their best life.
Yeah.
Because there's an assumption that you've got more time. There's an assumption you can just do it again in another life. It's like, but you don't know that. You only know that you've got this life. And that's what messes me up. And so the notion of rebirth or eventually leaving so that you can get to the higher plane and all that stuff, it doesn't sit well with me just as like, I don't know how to phrase it best.
I think I feel similarly.
Yeah.
Especially like about like not knowing what's after that. Like I definitely don't know. So I mean, it's sort of what we were talking about before in the other video. Like that's why I'm kind of just like let people do whatever they want to do because life is just kind of like.
As long as you're not hurting anybody.
Yeah, as long as yes, of course.
Yeah.
As like if it's cringy, who cares? Like let people do what they want to do. If it's kind of like be happy.
Yeah, for sure. No, but I do appreciate some of the principles. That's the thing I want to emphasize though is I do appreciate some of the principles being outlined here. It's just that with a certain limit. That's just me, giving you my full transparency.
Karma as dust. Passionate actions make the cloth wet, and so the dust sticks to it easier. Karma is what keeps you stuck in the samsara cycle. Karma physically binds your soul to this earth. But wait, there's more! You can escape this by burning away all the karma attached to your soul. The best way to do this is by becoming a Jain monk or nun. 6. Monks and nuns.
Naturally.
The Jain monk and nun life is based around the 5 Mahavratas, the great vows that we saw earlier. The first of the Mahavratas is Ahimsa.
Yeah.
For regular Jains, Ahimsa means trying to avoid harming other forms of life. For a monk or a nun, though, this is turned up to 11 and includes even microscopic life. Along with being strict vegetarians, they can't eat raw food, eat at night, or eat any food that they haven't thoroughly inspected in case they accidentally consume other life forms. They can't cook, so they have to go around to Jain households daily and beg for food. It is considered a very holy act for those regular Jains to donate food to them. They also carry small brooms to brush away tiny life forms in their way so they don't crush them. They cannot ride in vehicles because of the damage they cause, and they can't bathe because of the harm it could potentially do to waterborne life. Some Jain monks even wear mouth guards to avoid inhaling airborne life or harming it with their hot breath.
Oh.
The second Mahavrata is...
That's just way too much for me.
It's a lot. It's the most extreme you could be in that kind of situation.
I mean, like, you could consider walking on grass as killing.
Yeah.
Or even walking on soil. Like, there are microscopic life forms. Like, where does it stop?
I don't think it does. It just keeps going.
I don't know, man. I get a little bit confused by this whole thing. It sort of reminds me of being Amish. Like, because Amish aren't allowed to use technology either. It's like, but where do you draw the line? Like, is it using a faucet? Is that technology? Like, your clothes... The stitching of your clothes, like, why isn't that considered technology? Like, where do you draw the line exactly? Just what people did 2,000 years ago before the steam engine? Like, is that where you draw the line? I mean, the steam engine wasn't that long ago, but you know what I'm saying. Even so much as to wear a mask, it's like, but you're a creature of the earth, though. It's so interesting.
Not to lie. And the third is not to steal. Those two are kind of simple.
Oh,
I
no.
hope even non-Jains are sticking to those ones.
You kind of looked
The
happy
fourth
about it.
Mahabharata
Yeah, I know.
is the complete renunciation of sexual relations. Because, how do I say this? Strict Jains believe that people pollen contains vast numbers of living things, most of which will die soon after the act is complete.
People
They also
pollen.
believe that having a romantic relationship is a form of attachment, kind of like the Night's Watch. I probably should have just said that. Can we delete the people pollen part? The fifth and final Mahabharata is that of non-possession. Jain monks and nuns carry nothing but a few necessary items like their brooms and move every day in order to avoid attachment to one place. For Jains, this is the best possible life because of how non-violent it is. It is the best way to achieve moksha, and regular Jains hold the monks and nuns in very high regard.
Do they get attached to people though? If they're all traveling together, is that against?
Oh, they're not supposed to.
Yeah, right.
That's what my understanding is. They're not supposed to. I have serious attachment issues. I'm like, no, I'm not going to give up my friends and my family or
yeah, that'd
stop
be so hard. For me.
dating.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's my entire identity. I do wonder though, with all the masks and whatnot, if they were able to dodge COVID.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Due to the monks and nuns' dependence on the Jain community, the relationship between the two is extremely close and personal. Interestingly enough, the earliest nuns in history are probably found in Jainism. They can be traced back to the times of Mahavira, and Jainism is quite unique in the fact that nuns outnumber monks by a huge margin. Number 7. Regular Jains. The vast majority of Jains are not monks or nuns. Many accept that their time to be a monk or a nun will come in a future life. They follow the 5 small vows, the Anuvarata, which is
Okay.
like a diet version of the 5 great vows.
Maybe I can do that.
These
Yeah,
aren't
maybe.
strict rules.
It's more what you call guidelines than actual rules.
Regular Jains should try to avoid violence and violent jobs. They shouldn't lie, they shouldn't steal or cheat people in business, they shouldn't be too frisky, and should remain loyal to their husband or wife, and
Well, he's just blowing through a lot of pop culture references here.
Define too frisky.
So this is Hitman.
Yeah.
violent jobs. They shouldn't lie,
So he liked how Game of Thrones ended as a lie.
they shouldn't steal or cheat people in
Herbalife is a lie.
business,
Yeah.
they shouldn't be too frisky, and should remain
So
Got that meme.
You know, okay, so you know the meme.
I know
yeah.
the meme.
loyal to their husband or wife, and should do their best to unburden themselves of their wealth, ideally through charity. Jains are an extremely charitable community, but rather than their cash donations going to monks or nuns, they are spent on temples, health clinics, schools, libraries, or animal shelters. Regular Jains also practice strict vegetarianism. Eggs are counted as meat, they don't harm any insects, so honey is out as well. Anything fermented is considered to have life forms in it, so alcohol is also out the window. Root vegetables like potatoes, onions and garlic, literally my entire diet, are cancelled because you need to rip the entire plant out of the ground to eat them, thus causing destruction.
Look at that thick
Due
carrot.
to these vows, Jains have gravitated towards careers in
Did you see how thick that carrot was? Was that a carrot?
Oh, I don't
Am I
know.
dumb?
But like, it's just interesting, these rules. Some of these rules are very, very strict.
things such as
Yeah.
business and law. And today, Jains are amongst the wealthiest and most educated groups in India. Number 8. Loka. The Jain universe, or Loka, is made up of 3 parts. The wide top part is the heavenly realm, the waist is the earth, the wide bottom part is hell. At the tippy top of the universe is the Siddha Loka, where the souls of those that have achieved moksha go and enjoy infinite bliss. That's where all the Tirthankaras are chilling.
So do you go to heaven for a little bit or hell for a little bit and then get reborn?
No, I don't think so. I think it's
Then
just
what
a
are heaven
cycle.
and hell doing
Oh.
in the map? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I missed that part. Maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe they go to heaven and hell for a bit. Yeah, it's like,
Until they're reborn.
yeah, maybe.
It's Inferno. There are 7 layers. The deeper you go, the worse it gets. You stay in hell until all of your bad karma is burned away and you get to be
There we
reborn
go,
on earth
answered the
again.
question.
Now, hell in Jainism isn't really a punishment like it is in other religions. Rather, it's seen as a natural consequence of bad karma. The zone above the waist is the realm of the gods. This realm is like super fun. There's no suffering, everyone is happy, there's unlimited refills, probably a trampoline. The people that are reborn here are the ones with really good karma. But just like in hell, this isn't really a reward. You're reborn here due to the natural laws of karma, and even the gods eventually die, and karma still binds their souls in samsara. So even the gods will eventually be reborn on earth and will need to try and achieve moksha. This is why some Jains say that bad karma is a chain of iron and good karma is a chain of gold, but both are chains. all souls can be reborn in the Loka as any of 4 types: plant or animal, human, hell being, or god. Which is what the
Hell-being.
swastika in the Jain symbol represents, each of the 4 potential rebirths. Would you look at that? Looks like we just filled in the whole symbol. The swastika also represents the cycle of death and rebirth. All Jain temples and holy books must contain the swastika. It is an ancient and beloved symbol in India for many different religions. The Nazis kind of made things a bit awkward in that regard.
Yeah, I was just
Awful.
thinking that too. I'm like, y'all, you just messed up so
How
many things.
dare he take like a symbol of peace and do that? How dare he?
You messed up Chaplin's mustache. You messed up the haircut. You messed up the uniform, the Buddhist symbol or the Jain symbol. You messed up the name Adolf. You can't even call. You can't.
I know, you can't call your kid Adolf now.
Yeah, it's done. Like that might have been a popular name up until then. It's like, well, that's gone.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of people that sort of around that time were born and were called that name, like not to do with him, and now they're like awkward about it.
Yeah, you can't even find the name Hitler anywhere. Like that might have been a prestigious name at one point.
Every living thing, from a grape to a god, has the ability to be reborn as a human and achieve moksha. So, those are the 8 main concepts of Jainism, but it does leave us with some questions. You may be wondering, is there a Jain god? What do they pray to? What's the dealio, Mr. Video Man?
Jesus got a
well,
shotgun.
The Jain concept of God
Age
is
of
very
mythology,
unique.
Zeus.
They don't believe in a creator of the universe. Instead, they believe it has simply always been here. The liberated souls at the top of the Loka are beyond all wants and desires, so they see no reason to interfere on Earth. Jains worship them in order to be more like them, rather than to ask them to help out in life. Now, some Jains worship the gods in the upper heavenly realms, and since Jains are surrounded by Hindus, they tend to worship the same gods as them. But in the Jain worldview, those gods in heaven are imperfect and are still trapped in Samsara just like them. What about the different religious sects? Does Jainism have those? Of course, just like every other religion. The 2 main sects are the Digambara and the Svetambaras. Now you may be thinking, ugh, to yourself right now, what boring theological reason could there be for this split? Is it an argument about how to make holy bread or who should have been the main religious guy after another guy? Nope. This one's about naked dudes. The main theological divide between the Digambara and the Svetambaras is whether or not monks should wear clothes. The Digambaras, the sky-clad, claim that in order to be completely non-attached to the world, monks should also renounce clothing. This had the consequence of saying that women could not achieve moksha because they couldn't be naked in public, which was kind of just assumed. The Svetambaras, the white-clad, disagree and argue that a person can be unattached to clothes mentally but still wear them, so women can achieve moksha just like men. There are a few more differences between them, such as which Jain scriptures they accept, but the main one is the clothing. Jains have been highly influential in India for thousands of years, shaping its vegetarian-friendly diet and lending the concept of Ahimsa to Gandhi's independence movement. As knowledge of the Jains becomes more common outside of India, it confronts many people with difficult concepts. People tend to assume that the world exists for human consumption, to fulfill human desires. But for Jains, the world is something to give up, where humans are not dominant over other life forms, but part of an intricate web where animals and plants are more than just things to consume. In the last century, Jainism has found itself in a strange position. Their ancient philosophy has garnered the eye of the modern world as the ideas of non-violence, strict vegetarianism, and what could be called an environmentalist outlook are strikingly relevant in a world coming to terms with the fact that it may be consuming itself.
I think that's the thing I agree with most on this. Like, when did we decide that the world was for us to consume as humans? When was that decided?
When we struck fire.
Yeah, when you struck fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the thing I agree with most. Like, the world isn't for humans to consume.
I have thoughts about that. We'll get to that in a hot second.
And have severe consequences.
I think just like if you and I have a debate, an argument of some kind, you know, there's your version, there's my version, and then there's the truth.
Yeah.
And that truth is usually somewhere in the middle. And I think that with this, I personally view it as an extreme. If I were to go on a diet, I'm never eating chocolate. You know, I'm never eating ice cream. I'm not ever touching carbs. I'm just eating chicken breasts and broccoli.
The rest of your life.
Like that kind of strict diet physically is how I view Jainism. It's like it's a very, very strict spiritual diet. I think we're all capable of doing it, but do we want to? I don't. Like,
I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have no interest in that. I have
Those
interest.
that want to,
Yeah,
go for
no,
gold.
no,
you know?
no shame, no shame.
Yeah.
Here to walk the path that we're here to walk. Ideally, not hurting each other. In terms of consumption and that particular topic, it's a little tricky. I think that we definitely overconsume, and that's just a natural byproduct of time. It's like things just build and build and build over time, kind of like just layers, like Earth, right? Archaeologists, when they find bones in the ground, it's like the bones are there because the soil has laid on top of itself over and over and over again over time. That's just kind of how the world works. That's how life works. If you look at our brains, if I'm not mistaken, the bottom of our brain is the oldest version of like humanity's brain. If you know what I mean, like
caveman.
the caveman isms and all that stuff is all at the at the base of our brain, and the smarter 2/3 is on top. And so it's just like you start off with fire, eventually you get the steam engine, eventually you get men going to the moon, and then you get the iPhone, and then TikTok. And it's like it's just this eventual gradual build
So
to
your
the next
argument
thing.
is for progression.
My argument isn't for it. It's just like that's a natural thing because progression is a natural part of life.
I definitely agree, but with progression, for example, like Nike makes billions of dollars in profit every year, or like one of those huge companies, or Amazon.
Yeah.
Why do they have to treat their staff bad? Why
Well-
do they have to underpay people? It's that kind of greed that I think is just like unacceptable in this world. It's just taking.
Yeah.
And they don't need that much profit.
Yeah.
For the millions of lives they might live in reincarnation, they're never going to need that much money.
Okay, so that goes again back to progression, right? And so you get these constituents, you have the stock, the shareholders and whatnot, and you have to show year over year profit. I'm not saying this is good.
Yeah.
I'm just saying this is the system that we have, and that's why
But
that
they're
kind of
going
stuff
to make
exists.
profit. Do they have to make so much?
Well, if you're doing the exact same as you did last year, you're not seeing progression. That's the issue with corporations, with capitalism and all that stuff. And, you know, I'm part of that system, you're part of that system, especially if you're in a Western world, like you're part of that system, whether you like it or not. If you bank with any bank over here, you're probably part of that system, and, you know, you got to put your money somewhere.
Yes,
and,
of course.
And, you know, and they're all
We're
part of that
talking
system.
about like the 1%, though, you know?
No, all of us are part of this.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but like when we talk about like these people that are just like beyond greedy, these are the people that are making billions of dollars.
Right.
a
Okay. So
year.
what you're talking about is also responsibility.
Yes, and I think that's what I
yeah.
like about this. They seem to have a community responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think that really Western society should have more of a community responsibility.
Yeah, it's complicated.
It's definitely
yeah,
complicated.
Yeah.
And also like I'm very young. I'm like finding who I am in the world.
I thought you were like 45 years old. I'm just kidding.
But like I'm finding who I am in the world, so like I don't actually know, you know? Like
Yeah.
but from what I see, like it shouldn't be doggy dog world, survival of the fittest. There should be a certain amount once you're able to take care of a community.
I would prefer that we are all treating each other nicely and
Yeah.
responsibly, and we're not flipping each other off on the road.
I mean, but that
And-
does not even community.
Yeah.
You just be a nice person.
Yeah,
you know?
like no, I mean, I wish that we could trust our government to take care of us, because that's what a government is for.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are things that in an ideal world where I wish were different, but we don't live in that world. We live in a world where you need to be vigilant and aware of what's going on, because it kind of is a dog-eat-dog world, and it has been from the beginning. And it's like that in the
yeah.
animal kingdom as well. It's like that with humans, and it's the consuming of like vegetables and foods and whatever. It's like we're all part of that process. The thing is, we've removed ourselves from evolution. That's the thing. And it sort of took on its own life like a virus. It's like the Matrix said, humans are kind of a virus to this world. And assuming that we are able to get past the Great Filter, you know what the Great Filter is?
No.
It's a whole thing you'll have to look up later on. But assuming we're able to get past the Great Filter successfully, we're going to consume another world and then another world after that. It doesn't stop here.
Oh, I kind of see what you
You know?
Yeah.
And I don't know how to feel. Like, the thing about it is,
I mean,
like,
that is the thing. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know how to feel about it. I feel like I should just be a good person, but you know, like.
Jon Stewart was talking about this a little bit the other day, where he's like, someone was suggesting that a great way to help global warming, or just the environment, is to not have babies. I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, I want to have a kid, and I'm that selfish. I would like to have a kid, you know,
Well,
at
we're
least
not
one.
saying don't be selfish. We're just saying
Yeah.
don't be entirely selfish.
Right. And so, like, I'm just trying to find, like, a balanced way to enjoy the luxuries that I enjoy, but also not overconsume.
Yeah.
I try my best to not do what like America's known for, which because like we consume the most. Well, not you because you're Australian, but like Americans, right? Per capita, we consume more than anybody else. And I try my best not to be that individual, but I can't go all the way to that extreme over there.
No, of course, and no one's asking for that.
Yeah.
Maybe bringing a little bit, like a little sprinkle of
Yeah.
the principles of religion into the life wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, like I try my best to circulate stuff. You know, I don't throw things out very often. Like if I was to be done with this table, I would try to find someone who would want to use it. That's what I've done with a lot of my furniture every time I upgrade, is instead of just throwing it out, I try to circulate it somehow. I give a lot of things away as much as I can instead of just tossing it. Little things, you know? I mean, I'm patting myself on the back way too much.
No, but like those
yeah.
kinds of things are great, and
Yeah.
like you should feel good and pat yourself on the back for it, because I think it'll encourage more of that in
Sure.
like your lives and those around you.
But to answer your question, it's just like, I think that where we're at now is just a natural byproduct of just evolution and like the human evolution in terms of technological growth. Like this is where we have ended up is where we would have ended up somehow, some way, some shape, some form. Ideally, we would be further along if the Library of Alexandria didn't burn down, but like we don't know where that would have taken us. We might have expired already from nuking each other.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know what would have happened. Like the only thing that would have been different is we'd be further along if the Library of Alexandria hadn't burned down. Like maybe the global warming would be way worse as a result.
Well, I think that's the point as well. For example, like global warming happens, we're gonna have to, like all the consequences that happens, we're gonna have to pivot our whole existence, right? So
Yeah.
why not do it before the fact?
You ever try to get like a bunch of friends together to
Yeah.
show up at 7 o'clock?
Yes, okay, yes. I know it's hard, but you know, we could try.
It's so complicated.
It's honestly so complicated.
Yeah.
Of course, like we're not gonna solve it here.
Yeah.
but-
No, I mean, it's worth discussion because like this discussion could be an influential discussion to someone who ends up in politics and that person ends up making a huge dramatic change. You never know who's gonna see the conversation and be inspired by it. Let's say this video got 100,000 views. If one person is still watching right now, hashtag still watching in the comments if you are. If one person's still watching right now and they feel something from what we're saying, they're like, I want to change the world, God damn it. They might go out there and actually be a genuine beacon of change for the world and do good. I enjoyed this video. I thought it was very stimulating and educational. I'm not going to remember like 90% of it, but I thought some of the core concepts were interesting, and it does inspire me to try to find ways to mitigate how much I waste.
And how much I harm.
And how, yeah, exactly. I mean, because I do my own wasteful things in my own life, and I try my best to contain that and not do it as much.
I hold a lot of guilt about stuff like that, and I feel like maybe I should let a little bit of it go, and like, I don't know.
I don't think, yeah, I agree with you. You should let a little bit of it go.
Yeah.
You know? We can get into that another time, though. You guys, thanks so much for hanging out. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I am Jaby KOAY. This is
DEMITRA.
Peace out.